All right.
We're on
I got a
YouTube?
message saying it's live stream.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, it's muted. All right, good. Mendel's there. Very good. Okay.
Good morning, Chevra.
There it is. We're ready to roll. Shkoyach. Reb Zajac. Okay, 5:59. Oh, 6 a.m. Mendel, you look like you're in a camper van. In an unidentified location. I love it. Okay, guys. Rambam for Wednesday. Paraches of Hilchas Chametz Umatzah. Baruch Hashem. Maybe we'll even finish early today. All right, guys, here we go. Kevon, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, Baruch Hashem, just making sure. Missing Tzemach, but all right. Paraches Halacha Aleph. Sidur Asiyas Mitzvos Elu B'Leil Chamisha Asar Kachu. The order of the mitzvahs that we do on the night of the 15th, which is the night of the Seder, this is the way it goes. First, we bring a cup to every single individual around the table. Unlike Kiddush, where on a regular Friday night, just the guy usually just the Baal Bayis make Kiddush. Here, everybody, the Rambam says, gets their own cup. You make the bracha, and following that, then you make the Kiddush of that we say for the night of Pesach. And then after that, Uzman, we say Shechiyanu. And then we drink. Then he says, you make the bracha of Natilas Yadayim and you wash your hands. So two points. Number one, this is the washing that we do before we have the karpas, which our minhag is we do not make a bracha by that Natilas Yadayim. And the Rambam is clearly saying that you do. That's first of all. Additionally, this is just something that I noticed, which what I'm saying may or may not be correct, but it seems from the Lashon of the Rambam that he says, Dafka, you make a bracha and then you wash. And you'll see later, he says the same thing. You make a bracha, then you wash. So I asked my friend, Jonathan Abasera, who's Sephardic, whether Sephardim, because normally Sephardim are very strict in making what they say a bracha, what's the line, Middle? Over Lasiyasan. So you always make the bracha before you do the mitzvah. And that's why if you ever watch a Sephardic woman light Shabbos candles, they do it different than the way our wives, the Ashkenazim, we light and then they cover their eyes and make the bracha. By Sephardim, they make the bracha first. They're very into this. But by Natilas Yadayim, he said they don't, but he told me that the Jews from Rhodesia, which they're very meduic in following the Rambam, they make the bracha and then wash their hands. So could
Rhodesia doesn't exist anymore.
Maybe not, but there's a lot of Sephardic Jews. Wow, some of those glasses. There's a lot of Jews that come from there, Sephardic Jews, and they follow the Rambam a lot halachically. And he told me that they make the bracha and then wash their hands. So anyhow, that's just a diak that I saw over here. I thought was interesting. All right.
It's called Zimbabwe today, just FYI.
The Zimbabwean Jews. Okay. All right. Weiter gefahren. So Mavi and Shulchan Aruch, you bring the table. By the way, just you have to have the picture in your mind of all the people lying on their couches. They didn't sit at like regular tables like us. They lay on these couches like in the time of the Gemara, and they had tables that were brought in front of them or taken away. That's the picture. So first you make your kiddush, then they after you wash, they bring this little table in front of you, and v'alav morer, on that table is the morer, the yarek acher, and then another vegetable, which is the karpas, umatzah and matzah v'chareises, and the chareises v'gufay shel keves, and on it would also be the body of the keves HaPesach, the carbon Pesach, upsar chagiga, and also the meat of the carbon chagiga, which is probably your main course that you would eat that night in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Shel Yom Arba Aser, the Chagiga that they shechted on the day of the 14th. It was Marazeh, and today when we don't have Beis Hamikdash, Mavin al Shulchan, they bring the table. Shnei Minei Basar, we have two types of meat, the Rambam says, that are Echad L'Zecher Pesach, Echad L'Zecher L'Chagiga, one in remembrance of the Korban Pesach, and one in remembrance of the Korban Chagiga. For us today, on our Seder plate, I would say Chabad uses a chicken bone. Others have the minhag to use a shank bone. And the Zecher for the Korban Chagiga for us is an egg, but in the time of the Rambam, they had two types of meat, one for each Korban. Halacha base. Maschil umavari bari pri ha'adama. You start and you make the bracha of bari pri ha'adama on the karpas. You take the vegetable, and what does he say? He doesn't say you dip it in salt water. He says you dip it in charesis. Right? By the way, for me at the Seder table, I always wonder that charesis seems like the lost. It's like there, but like we don't really use it much. It seems in the time of the Rambam, they definitely used the charesis a lot more, like dipped in it, and it was like it was consumed. By us, it's like you have to shake it all off. You add the wine, and you got to be very anyhow. All right.
It was far more interesting back then. Today we don't make anything exciting.
Well, I don't know if you want to call charesis exciting, maybe. Well,
look at all the ingredients they use.
Yes, the dates and the raisins and the vinegar, all that stuff. 100%. All right. So he dips it in the chareis eichel because here's another one. Eichel kazayas. The Rambam says dafka that you eat a kazayas of this karpas. Who v'chol masubin oisai, him and everybody that's eating with him. Kol echad ve'echad ein eichel pachas mikazayas. You don't eat less than a kazayas, and we know that in today, all of us, everyone I know, they say dafka you eat less than a kazayas. Because of the whole thing of if you eat a kazayas, you have to make a bracha achrayna. So we say that you should have in mind when you make the beri pri adama on the maror as well. But dafka we eat less than a kazayas. And the Rambam said you eat at least a kazayas. Okay. Then they take away the table from the guy that is reading the Haggadah. You pour the second cup. The kan haben shoyel, and this is where the son asks. And the reader proceeds to recite. Notice the order of the Rambam is similar to Minhag Chabad, where the first question is Ein Anu Matbilin, not like the rest of the Welt, where their first question is about the matzah. Oh, this is an interesting one. The third question that the Rambam says in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they would say, all other nights we eat roasted meat. Shalok umavushol, also boiled meat, also cooked meat. Tonight we only eat roasted meat. I notice he says maroirim, and we say maror. Why is our singular and his was plural? I'm not really sure. So that today's day, where there's no Beis Hamikdash, we don't ask the question about the roasted meat, whatever. And stam, we have the minhag, at least by us, that we don't have roasted meat at the Seder table, so that you don't confuse anyone that they should think that you're actually eating a Korban Pesach, right? So dafka, why did Jews always eat brisket? Because brisket was cooked in liquid. Yaakov Shulman's mother would make it with celery and, well, at our Pesach she wouldn't use beer. So, all right, different recipe. But either the point is that it would be a braised meat rather than a roasted meat. Maskell,
you can tell that it's not.
Correct. That you wouldn't think that it's roasted. You won't get it mixed up with the what do you call it? I think there are some Jews that dafka do it the other way, that they dafka do roasted meat on Pesach, but that's not our minhag. Maskell beginus v'kere ad gomer drash proshas arami ovid ovid. So then we start talking about kind of like our lowly beginnings as Jews, and you continue reading until the completion of the parsha of Arami Oived Aviv Vayir Mitzrayma in Devarim Chavav. Halacha Dalet. Umachzir hashulchan lefanav v'omer. Then you return the table to him, and which is laden with all the different parts of the seder that you're going to use, the matzah and the maror and the korban pesach, and you say Pesach zu zeh she'anu oichlin al shem shepasach hamokim baruch hu al bati avasein b'mitzrayim. This korban pesach that we eat, it's because that Hashem passed over the houses of our ancestors in Mitzrayim. Shenemar v'amartim zeh pesach hu Hashem. Magbiya hamar biyadiv omer. You lift up the maror and you say maror zeh she'anu oichlin al. We say maror zeh she'anu oichlin al shema. Right? He says, Al Shem Shemaru HaMitzrayim Es Chayav Asin BeMitzrayim. They embittered our lives back in Mitzrayim. Shneimar Vayimaru Es Chayayim. That's the pasuk from Shmos. Then you lift up the matzah and you say, Matzah Zu Sha'anu Oichlim Al Shem Shloi Hispik B'Tseikam Shal Aviseinu Lahachmitz Ashenikla Leim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Golam Yad. This matzah we eat because we didn't have enough time to bake our dough and for it to rise and become chametz until the Eibishter redeemed us and brought us out. We say, Shenemar, as it says, v'yayifu es habotek asher haitziu mitzrayim, and they baked the dough which they took out of Egypt as matzah. In today's day, we say Pesach shahayu avaseinu. We change the girsa and we say that the korban Pesach that our forefathers ate. Bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim, at the time when the Beis Hamikdash was in existence. Al shem shepasach HaKadosh Baruch Hu al bati avaseinu v'chulu. Halacha hey v'omer, and then after that we say lefika kanu chayim lo hidas lahal shabel lefor loim legadu lahader ulenetzach lemisha asa lanu avaseinu es kol hanisam ha'elu v'yitzenu mi'adas lechedus. And then you, after that, you start the beginning of halav v'nemer lefanav haluka alu avdi Hashem. And then you conclude again, matzah umroimim. Right? Shuvi we say matzah umor. Today we add kain Hashem lekin v'gavasin yaginu l'mayadin v'lirigolim achirim habon l'krisin l'shalom. Smerich mivin yarech v'sam b'avidasecha v'nech Hashem min hazvachim u'min apsachim. But on Matzah Shabbos Mendel we say min apsachim min hazvachim. Why? I'm not sure, but I always remember that. Shiakia dam akim is b'chachal rotzim v'nedel chashir chadash al gulasenu aval plus nafshir brachat Hashem goyo Yisrael mubarech ala gefen. You make the bracha of bari pri agafen v'shoysa hakosheni, and then you drink the second cup. Halacha vav achak am mubarech al netilas yadayim. Then you make the bracha on netilas yadayim in noitel yadav shniya. Again, he says you make the bracha and then you wash your hands. Second time that he gives us that order. Because you were already you had hesach hadas while you were reading the Haggadah. So therefore, he says you have to do netilas yadayim again. This is the netila for matzah. Like now you take the two matzahs, which today we use 3 matzahs. Time of the Rambam, they took 2, and he says, "Cholek echad mehem, umaniach poros tek shalem, umavarech hamoitzi lechem min haaretz." He says you break one of them, so now you're actually holding 1 full matzah and 1 half matzah, and you make the bracha of hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. Why do we not make the bracha on 2 whole loaves? Like we know in general, whenever we make the bracha of hamaitzi, whether it's on Shabbos, whether it's on Yom Tov, we're very medaktik to have 2 full loaves for lechem mishnah. So the Rambam says, why don't we do 2 full ones like we do kishar yomim tevim? Shenemar lechem oini, because it says that this is the bread of affliction, or the bread of the poor. Ma darkei shel oni prusa, afkan prusa. Just like it's the way of a poor man to eat a broken loaf, so too we on Pesach are dafka also eating a broken loaf, and that's why the Rambam says we don't use 2 loaves when you make the bracha. By the way, by us we have 3 matzahs. We make the bracha of hamoitzi lechem min haaretz on the 2 and the broken one in the middle. Then we drop the bottom one, and we make the achilas matzah, I think, on just the whole one and the broken one. So that satisfies the lechem oini that the Rambam is bringing down. Afterwards, he wraps the matzah and the maror together, and this is the evidence that in the time of the Rambam they used the matzah was more like a lafa. It was soft. He says he wrapped it. Our matzah, you can't wrap it all. The thing breaks, right? So, you wrap it like one. You dip it in the chareises again. You make the bracha. Al achilas matzah and you eat them. If you eat just the matzah and just the maror, then the Rambam said it's okay, just make the bracha on each one individually. So it's interesting. It seems that in the time of the Rambam, that the ikar way of eating matzah and maror was dafka together, like Hillel in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Even though today we do matzah by itself, maror by itself, and then we do the keinos of Hillel. You make this bracha of al achilas hazevach. Then you would eat the meat of the korban chagiga, and then afterwards you make the bracha al achilas hapesach, and then then you eat some of the roasted Paschal lamb. The bracha of one does not pata the other one, so you have to make two brachas, one on the korban chagiga and one on the korban pesach. Halacha ches, Mendel, you're up.
Hey, I'm gonna. I don't know what my connection's like. Okay.
You sound like your father on vacation.
Hey, yeah, not hearing anything. Okay. All right.
No sound. Cannot hear you. You're not connected.
Okay, halacha ches. B'zman hazeh she'ein shalom karbon. Nowadays we don't have a carbon. Achar she'mevarach hamotzi lechem. Chozer mevarach al achilatz matzah. U'metabel matzah b'charoses v'ocha. You make the bracha. First you make hamotzi lechem, then you make the bracha al achilatz matzah. You dip the matzah in the charoses v'ocha. Like Danny said, the Rambam features charoses a lot more than we do nowadays. B'chozer mevarach al achilatz maror, and then you say al achilatz maror. U'metabel maror b'charoses. You do the same dipping into the charoses for the maror, and you eat the charoses. Below yasha also b'charoses. Do not leave it in the charoses for a long period of time. Shema yivatel taimo, lest you lose the flavor of the maror. V'zeh mitzvah midibri sofrim. That's a rabbinic mitzvah to dip it in the charoses. So chozer v'korach matzah umar. Then, so you said your matzah by itself, and you said your maror by itself. And then you do the korech matzah amar together, metabel b'charosis again. V'ochlam below bracha zecher lemikdash. You eat that without a bracha as a remembrance for the way that you used to do it in the korban pesach, where we would eat. In the Beis Hamikdash, when we would eat the korban pesach with matzah amar, we make the same korech sandwich today as a zecher. Halacha tes. Afterwards, you continue with your suda. V'ochel kol she'rotza lechol v'shosa kol she'rotza lishtos. You eat everything you want to eat. You drink everything you want to drink. And afterwards, you eat again from the basar of the korban pesach. So in the Beis Hamikdash, the last thing you would eat would be the korban pesach, and then after you eat the korban pesach, you wouldn't eat anything at all. Again, ein maftir and acharat pesach afikomen. That's basically in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Nowadays we don't. You have the korban pesach, so we don't finish the meal with that. Instead, we finish the meal with matzah. And you don't eat anything after the matzah. כדי שיהיה הפסק סעודתו בטעם בשר הפסח או המצה בפיו, so that you have a stop end of your meal and you have the remaining flavor of either the Korban Pesach or the matzah b'zman hazeh in your mouth. She'achilasan hi mitzvah, because there achila is the mitzvah, so I guess there's an idea of savoring it, keeping it with you. Halacha yud. Now you go back again, you wash your hands. So you wash my machronim. You make birkas hamazon on the third kos. The shoseyo, then you drink it. The achakach mosek kos revi. Right away, you pour the fourth cup, which is what we do. The gomer alav halal, and you say on the fourth cup halal. V'omer alav birkas hashir. V'hi yehalalucha Hashem Elokeinu kol ma'asecha, and that's what we say on Shabbos morning. The whole bracha of nishmas. And you shouldn't eat anything at all after the fourth cup of wine all night, except if you need water, you can have water. You should also go ahead and pour a fifth cup. So the other paragraph of Tehillim that you're going to be saying on this fifth cup, because this fifth cup is not a chov like the other four, and you can finish the halal at any point that you want, even though it's not a place where one eat. In other words, you can leave. You can go to your friend's house. You can go to a different room. You can continue the halal. You don't have to stay b'makom suda. So it's interesting. This fifth cup, he sounds like he's saying that you drink it. He's saying you take your fourth cup. You say some parts of halal, you drink it, and then it says v'yeshal limzo koshlishi, say halal over it. He doesn't say and then drink it, but he does say because I think it's mashma that you're going to do the same thing as you did the first four.
Yeah. It brings out in your Rambam from the Rabbi there. This is not the way we do it.
The Rambam definitely disagrees with this, and the Rambam, the Rabbi's shita is that whether or not you pour a fifth cup, you certainly are not going to drink it because every other Indian is 4 kosos. In a place that they have a minhag to eat roasted, like the Sephardim do nowadays, that's fine. They can go ahead and eat it. In the place where the minhag is not to eat it, you should not eat it. And the reason why they made such a gezerah is because we don't want people to think that you're actually eating the Korban Pesach. But to really make a full roasted lamb on this night is definitely asur. Because it looks like you're actually bringing a real korban outside the Beis Hamikdash, which is very asur. But if it was cut up, or if it was missing limbs, or one of the limbs you boiled it, even though it's still attached. Interesting kitchen setup you have over there. Harezeh mutter, because there's a clear hecker that what you're doing is not the way they did the Korban Pesach. So if that's the minhag to do in your place, that's an okay minhag to have. Halacha yod beis mi she'ein lo yayin b'leilei haPesach.
Those who don't have sleep, so he doesn't change the namashana for the people who don't have.
Interesting. So they're saying that even though we have some differing minhags about whether you actually eat tzli or not, in the Manishtana, the Girsa was to have it. But I thought he said that in Bizman Hazeh we take that out.
Correct.
So
tzli is only in the time of the Beis Hamikdash.
So even by Manishtana, when it's not Bizman Hamikdash, we take out the tzli. Even Shitas Rambam says that. Okay, where are we holding here? Somebody doesn't have wine. So like on Shabbos, you can make kiddush over the challah. So too on Pesach, we can make kiddush on the matzah, not on the pas, but on the matzah. But also called Dvarim al Seder Zen, you can make all the seder of the night on matzah, meaning to say 4 times. You're going to be, whatever brachas you're going to be making instead of on wine. Sounds like he's saying on matzah. Mi she'ein lo yarak, although I don't know how that's going to work for 3 and 4 if you have to do the afikomen. Okay, so Rambam is not explicitly explaining that. Mi she'ein lo yarak, somebody doesn't have a vegetable. Elo marar bilvad, so he doesn't have karpas. What does he do? B'atchila mevarech ala marar shtei brachos. you make 2 brachos right away on the maror, Bore Pri Adama and Al Achilas Maror, V'ochel, and you eat them. Ukeshagomer Haggadah, Mavarech Al HaMatzah V'ochla. When you finish the Haggadah, then you make the bracha on the matzah. So in other words, you do the karpas before Magid. So you do your karpas on maror, you make your Achilas Maror at that point. Then you say the Haggadah. And then after the Haggadah, then you barach on just matzah, and then you go V'chozer V'ochel Min Al Maror below bracha. So in other words, even though you already said the bracha, you're still going to go back and do maror again, so that you have the matzah and the maror side by side together, right next to each other. Yud Gimel. Misha Ein Lo Matzah Mishemeres. You don't have shmura matzah. Ela Kazayis. Sorry. You only have the minimum shear of matzah, and that's all you have. Kishagomer Sudaso Mimatzah She'ena Mishemeres. So then you have a box of you have 1 matzah shmura left, and then you have other matzah that's less shmura. Or not shmura. Mavarech Al Achilas Matzah V'ochel Oso Kazayis. So you should make your initial bracha on the matzah on the shmura matzah, and then for the afikomen, it's okay to use lesser quality shmura matzah for that, and you can still eat your kazayis, and then you're still going to have the same thing where you're not going to eat anything afterwards. Halacha Yadalid. Misha Yashan Matoch Hasuda, somebody who fell asleep in the middle of the suda, v'hikitz, and he wakes up. Eina Choser Ochel, he does not go back and eat again. B'nei Chabura Sheyashnu Miktasam B'soch Hasuda. If there are a group of people that are eating together, and some of them fell asleep in the middle of the suda, chozrin v'ochlin, they may eat again. So in other words, if you're eating by yourself and you fell asleep, that's it. You're done with it. You're done for the night. But if you're with people that are still going, so then you can wake up and rejoin their meal that never stopped. Nirdumu kulon v'nei oru. If they all fell asleep and then they all woke up, lo yochlu, they should not eat. Nismam mamnuhu, if they were just nismameya, if they were just dozing off, then yochlu, they continue eating. So in other words, in order for the sleeping to be a real hefsek in the suda, it has to be a true kavua dika sleeping. But if it's just a temporary one, then they can continue their suda.
Your friends keep you plugged in.
Your friends keep you plugged in.
That's the Chassidish word for the chapter. That's the Chassidish word for the chapter.
That's the Chassidish word for the chapter. Is that your friends keep you plugged in?
No, I got it.
Okay, this is the Nusach Haggadah according to the Rambam. Nusach Haggadah shenago bal Yisrael b'zman Haggadah kachu. Maskal kosheni v'omer Rab Hilo yatzanu miMitzrayim. Ha lachma anya diachalo avasana bar the Mitzrayim called dich ben Yisab Yechel v'chol ditzrich l'Pesach Yisab Yipsach hash shata hachal l'shan haba bar Yisrael shata hachal ba'avdei l'shata de Asya b'nei Chayrin manashan alayla zeh b'kol alaylois. שבכל לילה זנו מטבילין אפילו פעם אחת, ולילה זה שתי פעמים. שבכל לילה זנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, לילה זה כולי מצה. He doesn't say, Tate, ich will by the fragen für Kashrus. I don't know, he missed that in the Nusach. שבכל לילה זנו אוכלים שרירוקes, ולילה זה מרוירים. שבכל לילה זנו אוכלים בנישונים ומסובים, ולילה זה כלנו מסובים. עבדים היינו. The fire in Mitzrayim, Yitzin Hashem Elokeinu Misham Yan Chazak was an Torah B'Yilolai Gal Hakadosh Baruch Hu Asav Yisin Mitzrayim. Adayin Anu Vanenu V'nei Vanenu Mishubadim Hayinu L'Fayim Mitzrayim. V'Afil Klanu Chachamim Klanu Revodim Klanu Zakenim Klanu Yedim Asaterim Mitzvah Aleinu L'Sapi B'Sis Mitzrayim. Shekol Hamayirach L'Sapi B'Sis Mitzrayim Hareza Mishubach. Ma'aseh Rabbi Laz Rabbi Yushav Rabbi Laz Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Kibbutz Rabbi Tarfon Shayim Misubah B'nei Brak. V'Yimisapim B'Sis Mitzrayim Kol Ozer Laila Achabel Tamideim Yomer Lahem Rabbi Seinu. We know the famous part of the Rebbe that how was it that they didn't know? It was because there was so much light that they couldn't distinguish the light between day and the light that they were experiencing in their Seder. So that's why their Talmidim needed to come and tell them that it was time for Kriya Shema. That's according to the Rebbe, I think. Amar Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Zajac. Shenamar Lamantiskar is Yem and Says Parents and Sraim, call Yemechayacha, Yemechayacha Yamim, call Yemechayacha Halelois, Vacham, Yemechayacha Halam Haza, call Yemechayacha Lahabi, Yemais Mashiach, Baruch Hamachim Shanasan Kalamisha Baruch Hu, Kenegra Babanim, Dibretera, Echad Chacham, the Acharasha, the Achatam, the Echad Lishal. There are 4 sons, of course. As the Lubavitchers, we can't, it would be remiss if we didn't mention the 5th son, the son that never showed up to the Seder Bechlal, whereas the famous story that the Rebbe told that the Federation once came to him and said that they should leave an empty seat at the Seder, Lezecher, the 6 million Jews that aren't able to be at the Seder this year because of the Holocaust. The Rebbe said, instead of having an empty chair, fill it with someone who otherwise wouldn't have a Seder.
It was Eli Wiesel.
It
was Eli Wiesel who the Rebbe spoke to about that.
Oh, that was the story. It was with Eli Wiesel. Wow.
Eli Wiesel, yes.
Nice. Af ata emer loy kehilchas haPesach in maftiren es achar haPesach apikomen. Rasha mahu emer ma aveda aziz lochem loy. Ulefi shaitzi es atzmim min haklal b'kafar b'ikar af ata hake eshinav emer loy baber zas Hashem li b'tzeisim Mitzrayim li loy ilo hayasham loy hayanikol tam mahu emer ma zois v'marte ila b'chizik arasyan Hashem Mitzrayim beis avadim shenu yidei lishol at psach loy shneber b'yad elevin chabayim lemar baber zas Hashem li b'tzeisim Mitzrayim. Digar to Levincha, Yachal Mirash Kodesh, Tamalemer by Yamahu, Eva Yamahu, Yachal Vimyain, Tamalema Brabuza, Loyamar Tela Bishash, Matsamarim, Nocham Lupanecha, Itrilla, if they have the Zara, Hayavizino, Akshab, Kerban, Amaka Baruch, Lavidas, never be a Mishua, El Kolam, Kayam Hashem, Israel, the Eber Hanar, Joshua, Bisechem, the Ilan, Terra, Abraham, Avani, Nacher, Bavi, Nacher, we have the Him, Achirim, Ekachas, Abichim, Savarmayever, Nabre, Oysay Mikol Eretz Canaan. The Arba Zari Vetan Leis Yitzchak Vetan Leis Yitzchak Vetan Yitzchak Es Yaakov Es Esav Vetan Leis Es Har Seir LeEresh Oysay Yaakov Ran Bjardim Mitzrayim. Baruch Shemer Abta Chasel Yisrael Eimer Baruch Amay Baruch Hu Shakadosh Baruch Hu Machashav Es Haketz. Last is Kamesha Amar Abram Rabbeinu Bein Habasarim Shenever Abram Yad Teidaki Ger Hayez Arach Beres Lohem Rabadam Binu Oysam Arba Meo Shana Begam So Gasher Yabdu Adon Anichi Vachrechem Yetzu Berkush Gadol. He Shiamda Labisino Volano, Shalai Echad Baramalino Ella Bechol Dervadar Imdi Malino Hasino Makalish Baruch Matzlin Yadam.
Doesn't say anything about a candle or walking to the door.
So this is interesting. Why is it that if it wasn't for the fact that God would take us out of Egypt, we would still be slaves? We would not be free. Yet, when we go through the last 2,000 years of history, it doesn't seem like we were so free. With all the Nazis and the pogroms and the communism and the Greeks and the Romans, where was the freedom? This is the freedom. So what's the chiddush of the freedom that we got at Mitzrayim, for which, if not for this freedom, we would still be slaves, when it doesn't seem like we were free? So the answer is that this is a freedom which became an inherent freedom. It's not a freedom that we were free. The Gashmias, it was a freedom that we were free to choose throughout all of history, Baruchnias. That means that, like Viktor Frankl says, that the one thing they couldn't take away from us was our ability to choose our perspective and our mindset. That was an inherent freedom that Hashem gave to us. Ki ein mira lesain ashal avadach ki chavadar beretz kanan be'ata yeshvana avadach beretz keshan b'mseima ad k'meshin amar b'shim nefesh yarda avisechem mitzrayim be'ata som chasham lekach lekach v'shamayim l'roiv v'hi sham legoyim lam shal yisam mitzrayanim sham God of Yatzam Commission Amar of an Esau Paravishus of Yibra Yatzam with Mali Hardis Isam Birav, and we were populous. So what was it? Were we populous or were we small in number? Which one was it? So Rabbi has a nice mimer about this. He says the difference between this is our ability to have the avodah of dilug. Dilug means we could jump. We could do something completely different from what we did yesterday. And in that way, we're able to overcome the notion of being small, and we're able to jump into this notion of being big, where we become significant by Hashem. We said, "Why some even are the Mishnayos the Paras piece of Islam says, we know all they know with the Kasha Commission Amar be Avidum Mishnayim as many Yisrael before. We need Sakal Shem the Kasino Commission Amar by Hibai Maram Naim by Masmal from Sam Yan from Yisrael Mina with the Viso Tal Shabasam El Kim Min Havida. But Ishmael Kim as Kaleno Hashem heard us. Commission Amar Ishmael Kim as not Kasam. He's called the Kim as as Abraham is Yitzchak as Yaakov. The Yaras and Yenu Zu preachers there as Commission Amar Yarim as many Yisrael Viedu El Kim. The Esamaleno, we had difficult labor. Elu abanim commission kol habin ayilad hayoira tashlichu b'chalabas techayun. Dafka, that they wanted to keep the girls alive. I think we say b'chveidu atzmai. K'moshe nemar v'avarti eretz Mitzrayim b'layla azev yikesi go b'eretz Mitzrayim v'yadam behema v'kol elokei Mitzrayim esar shvatim ani Hashem yad chazaka zeh adavar k'moshe nemar v'hine yad Hashem hayam mitapasher v'asada v'asusim v'chamirim v'gam b'agmal mabagam b'sam dever kavim me'oid v'zera nituya zu hechera k'moshe nemar v'chaver shlo v'yad nituya al Yerushalayim v'meir gadol zeh gilo yishtino k'moshe nemar oy hanis alokim lavei lakachas loy goyim b'karav goyim masas v'esis makes him milchama v'yad chazak v'zera nituya v'meirim delim kol asher asar shalom lekechem b'mitzrayim leinecha v'oisois zeh hamato shnemar v'esamata v'azad tikach v'yadecha asher tasa v'oisois uv'moivsim zeh hadam k'moshe nemar v'nosat v'oivsim b'mashamayim v'aretz dam v'ish v'simrei sa'ashan davar acher v'yad chazak shtayim u'zer nutuy shtayim v'meir gadol shtayim v'esis shtayim v'moisim shtayim elu aser Makei Shehivi HaKadosh Baruch Hu Al Mitzrayim B'Mitzrayim Ve'Elohim Dam Tzavadeya Kinim Arov Deber Shchin Barad Abra Cheshek Makas B'Choyrois Rabbi Yehuda HaYonosim Ben Simon Yitzach Adash V'Achav. Why did he give this abbreviation? I forget the thing, but there's something special. Rabbi Gamliel Eimer Kol Shalei Amar Shalei Shadavar Meil B'Pesach Lo Yatsa Yidei Chavasai Pesach Matzah Meirin Pesach Shalei B'Sein Zmanash B'Esim Midrash Chaim Al Shem Ma Al Shem Shapasach B'Makayim Al Batei Al B'Sein B'Mitzrayim. He skipped over our houses. Nemar B'Amartem Zebach Pesach Hu L'Hashem Asher Pasach Al Batei B'Nei Yisrael B'Mitzrayim B'Nag B'Es Mitzrayim V'Espatenu Yitzel V'Yikoid Ha'am V'Yishtach Chavu Matzah Zu Sha'anachnu Ichlam Al Shem Ma Al Shem Shal Hisbik B'Tzekim Shal Abisinu L'Hachmitz. I think we have a different lashon. Achne Galim Achmachem Malch Gosh Baruch Hu Ugalam Miyad Shnemar V'Yefu Sabatzek Asher Yitzim Mitzrayim Ugeis Matzos Kiloi Chametz Kigosh Mitzrayim Lo Yachlu Ismamiya V'Gam Teda Lo Asu Lahem. Medreiverim Elu Shanachnu Ichlim Al Shem Ma Al Shem Shemaru Mitzrayim Es Chayam Sem Mitzrayim.
This is Merorim Elu. Sounds like the Rambam always had some sort of combination of bitter vegetables.
Yeah, so it could be the romaine, and the horseradish.
But it sounds like he actually used multiple at a time.
This year was the first year I had romaine lettuce that was actually bitter in Israel. I never had bitter romaine lettuce before. It was a novelty. Al Shem Hashem Yer Mitzrayim is Chaya B'Sem Mitzrayim Shnemar V'Eim Mararu as Chayehem Ba'Avida Kasha B'Choyim V'Veinim B'V'Chol Avida B'Asol Is Kol Avidasam Asher Avdu B'Hem B'Farach. Behold, over there, Chayev Adam Lira says Atzmei Kilo Yatzmei Mitzrayim, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention the Alter Rebbe who said B'Chol Yoim V'Yoim. We always every day have to mention it, which is connected to this idea of Yitzis Mitzrayim, which is interesting that when Hashem gave us a Torah, He didn't say Anoich Hashem Alekecha, I am the Lord your God who created the world. He didn't say that. He said, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Why? Because the ultimate miracle is the notion of being able to live in the physical world and still have the notion of Yitzia from our own limitations. That is the ultimate paradox of the human condition. Losses Meshivit legeula, miyagan lesimcha, me'able leyamtov, me'afil le'ergadol, me'nemer lefanov. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I love the Adonai, hello, Shem Adonai, Yishem Adonai. Ad shachamish l'mayne ma'ye baruch Hashem lekinam elokei l'mashagalanu gaz abzena mitzrayim yikan l'layla lechol b'ay matzo meirim kain Hashem lekinu v'lekei abzena yikayif d'aginu l'meyadim l'iter galim achirim abim l'krasenu l'shon l'smeich m'binyan yirecha v'saz me'aved l'sacha v'neichal sham mazbachim when absachim she'yagia adam el kir mizbecha l'ratzim neidel chasher chadash agilos enu v'yaptus nafshenu baruch atah Hashem gal Yisrael keseder shemevarchim kainim ha'agada b'leil Yom Tov Rishon Shal Pesach, according to this order, which one recites, which is the blessings and the Agad on the first night of Pesach. This is the same Seder that we say on the second night of Pesach. The second night we are obligated in the 4 cups, and everything else that we do on the first night, we do on the second. Brich Rachmana Zayon. Shkoyach.
Leave it alone. Oh, Yaakov.
Scrap.
Who's yours? You want them? Okay, here we go. Shalom. So now that we left Egypt, We're
Shalom.
going to learn Hilchos Shofar and Sukkah. I want to make a bracha that we should leave Egypt, our Egypt here, and we should go to Kab Shofar Gadol.
Amen.
Mashiach Tzidkenu, and we're learning Sukkah also, so we should sit in the big Sukkah with Mashiach Tzidkenu. All right. Hilchos Shofar v'Sukkah v'Lulav. Yesh bichlanon shloish mitzvos aseh v'zeh hu pratan. We have 3 positive commandments, and these are the specifics. Aleph, lishmaya kol shofar be'echad b'tishrei. To listen to the voice of the sound of the shofar on the first of Tishrei. Beis leishev b'sukkah shivas yimei hachag. To sit in a sukkah for the 7 days of the Chag of Sukkos. Gimel, litol lulav b'mikdash kol shivas yimei hachag. To take the lulav in the Beis Hamikdash the 7 days of the Chag of Sukkos. The specifics are in this chapter. Perek Aleph. Okay. Halacha Aleph. Mitzvahs asay shel Torah lishmaya truas hashofar b'Rosh Hashanah. It's a positive commandment of the Torah to listen to the sound of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. How do we know? Shneimar Yom Trua Yeh Lachem. A day of sounding of the ram's horn, it will be for you. The shofar shetoikin boy ben b'Rosh Hashanah ben b'Yovel hu ken hakvasim hakafuf. Whether this shofar that we blow is for Rosh Hashanah or we're blowing it on the Yovel, this is from a bent ram's horn. The shofar can only be from a ram's horn. Anything else is pasul. As Rabbi Okay. Zajac always points out, not like those long ones that the some communities use. A bent ram's It has to be bent, not straight. Okay. The alpha pisha loin is parish betwira trua b'shofar b'Rosh Hashanah. Even though it doesn't explain in the Torah the sounding of the shofar for Rosh Hashanah. Harehu omer b'yovel v'havarta shofar trua. In regard to the yovel, it says you shall make a proclamation. Taviru shofar, sounding the shofar. We learn from oral tradition that just like we blow it on Yovel, so too we blow it on Rosh Hashanah. So too is with a shofar. Okay. Halacha beis. Bamikdash, how you taking Rosh Hashanah b'shofar echad. In the Beis Hamikdash, they would blow with one shofar. And then there would be 2 trumpets on each side. Hashofar marich v'chatzotzros mikatzros shemitzvos hayom b'shofar. The shofar would make the long blast, and the trumpets would make the short blast. That the mitzvah of the day is with shofar. Why do we blast with the chatzotzros, with the trumpets? Mishum shnema b'chatzotzros v'kol shofar lifnei hamelech Hashem. We know that the pasuk says with trumpets and the sound of the shofar before Hashem, the king. However, outside of the Beis Hamikdash, outside of the Beis Hamikdash, we only blow with the shofar. Halacha Gimel. Shofar shel avodah zara. If you got a shofar from somebody who worshipped avodah zara, or that the shofar was used with avodah zara, so initially, do not use it for Rosh Hashanah. However, if you did, you are yoitzi, you have fulfilled your obligation. However, if it's from a ner dachas, an apostate city, if you blew from it, you are not obligated of your obligation is not fulfilled. Okay. Shofar Gadol Shetaka Boy. This Hagazul. Keep it Shofar Gadol. See where my mind is. Shofar Hagazul Shetaka Boy. The shofar that was stolen and you blow from it, so you have fulfilled your obligation. The mitzvah is in the hearing of the sound, and not on the one who has touched it, and on the one who has lifted it up to be able to blow it. There's no concept of stealing in regards to sound. So maybe you can learn from here that the people who record music and you think that it's stealing if you take their stealing. Who knows? Maybe not. There's no stealing from sound. Okay.
The real question is, so why would it not be kosher for you to use the shofar for your dachas?
That's a good question. So to a shofar that comes from
either. I think the answer answer would be is that something from Irani Dakas, you have to burn the entire everything.
That's right.
So if it's in the already considered like if it's set to be burned, then it's like it's burned already. So then maybe it's like the club didn't really come from a shofar.
For those who didn't hear, Danny is saying when you're in dachas, you cannot be yotzi because everything has to be burned and then you're in dachas. So maybe this that has to also be burned is as if it's doesn't exist.
But nobody said you yotzi from Avodah, but there's also not that I've enough from. So what's the distinction? I think it's doctor because Irani Dakas is set to be burned. Because it's something that's set to be burned, it's like it's burned already. So then it's like you didn't hear it from a shofar. That's my guess.
If the shofar is from an oila offering, lo yitaka ba, you should not blow from it. However, if you did, you have fulfilled your obligation. She'ein b'kol me'ila, because it doesn't have the concept of me'ila. We said what me'ila is before, that you took something that was hektish and you used it for something that was not hektish, meaning you misappropriated it. Then you cannot use it in the Beis Hamikdash, but that does not apply to sound. V'im toimar, if you're going to ask, he derived benefit from this sound that he used that was hektish. Mitzvahs were not given for pleasure. Mitzvahs were given to fulfill the command of Hashem. Therefore, a person who hamudar hanaya b'shofar, a person who vows not to derive benefit from a shofar, he makes a vow that I'm not going to. He's allowed to blow from it because he's not taking pleasure from it. He's fulfilling a mitzvah instead. Halacha Daled. Shofar shel Rosh Hashanah. Shofar of Rosh Hashanah ein mechalelin alav es Yom Tov. We are not allowed to be mechalel Yom Tov because of it. Afilu b'davar shehu mishum shvus. Even something that's only a shvus. Ketzad. What does this mean? Haya hashofar b'Rosh Ha'ilan or me'ever hanar ein lo shofar elehu. You have the shofar on the top of a tree, or you have it across the river, and you do not have another shofar to be able to blast on Rosh Hashanah. Ein over be'ilan, oila be'ilan, v'lo yishat al pnei hamayim kedei lahaviyoi. You should not climb up the tree. You should not swim across the river in order to bring the shofar. Ve'ein tzarich loymar she'ein choschin oisa ve'ein oisim boi melacha. You don't even have to say that you should not cut it off of an animal, and you should not do a malacha with it, or any malacha, mipnei shetkiyah shofar mitzvahs aseh. Why? Because the mitzvah of shofar is a positive commandment. The Yom Tov aseh v'lois aseh. However, the mitzvah of Yom Tov has aseh in it and has lois aseh. Therefore, the aseh and the lois aseh together is stronger than the mitzvahs aseh of the shofar only. Or mayim or yayin or chometz Yom Tov kedei lachsach. You're allowed to rinse it with water, wine, or vinegar in order to make it sound better. You can never use urine because that would be you do not want to do mitzvahs that are in a deprecating manner. Halacha, hey, shir hashofar. What is the length of the shofar? The minimum size. In order that you'll be able to hold it with your hand, and you'll be able to visibly see it from one side and the other. Meaning, I think you're holding it, you can see it from the side that you're blasting from, and you can see it from the side that the sound is coming out from. Okay? Nistad l'arkoi pasul. If it was cracked lengthwise, it's pasul. L'rachboi im nishtar boy kashir or kosher. However, if it's length widthwise, if you still have the minimum amount, it's kosher. It's as if it was cracked only from the point where you have on, so you still have the minimum measure. It's as if it's just doesn't exist from us. The width of it, for example. So if you still can hold it and see it, and it's still kosher from that point where it's cracked and up, let's just say, it's still kosher. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was thinking that it maybe you're holding in your hand, the part that sticks out
is still totally kosher. That part that
like
sticks out, it's like it's cut from your hand on. Right, exactly. Okay. Nikav, if it was cut off at the place.
It had a hole.
Oh, if it had a hole, okay. If you try to stuff it up with something that is not of the same material as a shofar, pasul. If you stuffed it up with another part of shofar, if the rest of it is complete, and it makes the same sound as before, As long as it didn't alter the sound, it's kosher. Okay. Kedacho bezach rusoi. If it was perforated on the inside, kosher. Shemin b'mino ena chitzas, because a substance of the same kind is not considered to be a chatzitza, an intervening entity. Dibak shivreis ad shehishlimu le'achad pasul. If one sticks out fragments of the shofar until it has constructed a shofar, if they put it together, they glued it together, pasul. Halacha vav. Hoisif alav kol shehu. If one made any addition to the shofar, bein b'minoi, bein shlo b'minoi pasul, whether it's you're adding from the same material of a shofar or you're adding from some other material, it's pasul. Tzipahu zahav mepefnim or b'makom hanachas hapeh, pasul. If you added gold on the inside or gold where you're going to blow from it, pasul. Pasul means not acceptable.
Right.
Okay. Tzipahu mibachutz im nishtane kolo mekamois shahaya pasul. If you coated it with gold on the outside and it changed the sound, pasul. However, if you coated it with gold on the outside, you wanted a gold shofar, but it sounds exactly the same as it was before, you're allowed to do that. Nasan shofar b'soich shofar, you placed one shofar inside another shofar, in kol pnimi shama yatsa. If you heard the sound of the shofar that is the one that is inside, you are fulfilled your obligation. However, if you heard the sound of the shofar that's on the outside, you are not yotzi. You can widen the narrow part of the shofar. Oh, if you widened either the short part of the shofar or you widened the large part of the shofar, pasul. Halacha zayin. If a shofar was long and a person made it short, kosher. If one scraped away the horn, either from the inside or from the outside, if he did it, even if one did so to the extent that all that remained was a small shell, kosher. Haya koiloi ava or dak or tzara kosher. Shekol hakoilois ksherim b'shofar. Any sound, whether the sound is heavy, thin, or raspy, that sound is kosher from the shofar. Halacha ches. Atakeh b'soich habor or b'soich hamayra. A person who blows the shofar inside a pit or inside a cave. Whoever is inside that pit or inside that cave, they are yotzi. How about the ones who are not inside the pit or inside the cave, but they're outside of the pit or the cave? In kol shofar shamu yatsu. If they heard the sound of the shofar, they are yotzi. In kol havara shamu lo yatsu. However, if they heard an echo of the sound, not that they heard the actual sound of the shofar, they just heard an echo, lo yatsu. By the way, I'm guessing that's why we wouldn't be able to use like a microphone or something to be able to make it loud. You have to hear the actual shofar itself. If a person blows a shofar inside a large barrel, this would be like a microphone. In kol shofar shamayatza. If you heard the sound of the shofar, you're yotzi. In kol havara shama lo yatza. And that is the end of the parak. Have a great day.
Right,
Yom Tov.